All right, it is my great pleasure to welcome Travis Hedrick, the CEO of AGgrow Tech, to give today's biomass webinar. Travis will tell us perhaps in a minute if he's got additional titles that he wants to use in addition to CEO of AGgrow Tech, but that's enough to get started with. Um, Travis, would you mind going ahead and sharing your screen and we'll do our normal welcome and acknowledgements?
Sure. Thanks, Emily.
All right, great. So we're going to hear today about the state of the US Miscanthus industry from Travis, among some other topics. Next slide, please. And the Biomass webinar series is brought to you by a partnership between the University of Illinois and Iowa State University. It's sponsored by the Department of Energy, the US Department of Agriculture, and the Midwest Regenerative Ag Fund, which funds the iRegion, Illinois Regenerative Ag Initiative. You can register for the webinar if you haven't already, although you're here, so you probably have, using this QR code. And then if you go to the next slide, we had a slight change in our schedule. So we have Travis today, and then next Thursday, we have Peter Wolf to talk about the past and future of Miscanthus in Ashtabula County, Ohio. I know I'm supposed to do some like OH thing in the chat for Van Lukey for that. And then we'll finish the spring series on March 13th with Bill Belden. We will reconvene this series later this year at a date that I have not yet determined, but I will share with everyone who is registered for the conference in their email. So if you've been getting this link from someone else, then I don't have your email address. If you want to be on the mailing list, please make sure you register for the seminar or for the webinar. And all of these webinars are posted at the IC YouTube channel, but again, I'll put the link for that in the chat. Okay, with that, Travis, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Heaton, and thank you, Illinois University, for providing me the opportunity to share the state of the miscanthus industry. It's not often I get the opportunity to do webinars, so bear with me through my talk, but I look forward to this conversation. I wanted to start things out with just sharing a little bit about AGgrow Tech, our history, and then I'll get into more of the market-based talk. So our company is really here to grow sustainable solutions for future generations. That's how we have kind of positioned our company in the agricultural sector. We're looking to revolutionize agriculture by establishing perennial energy crops on large scale to enhance sustainability. Perennial energy crops protect water, soil, and air. Also, the biomass that is produced is considered a carbon negative ingredient to fuel the future bio-based economy. I love this slide. I like to start out with this slide. As you can see, there's a picture here of about 500 acres of miscanthus to the right. And on the left, you can see traditional agriculture during the winter months on the eastern shore of Maryland. What to note about this picture is the ground is uncovered along a body of water. And so that's where perennial energy crops like miscanthus truly do have a fit in agriculture to protect water, soil, and air. The history of our company, we were founded in 2010. We started out this endeavor with about a 1/4 acre of miscanthus that we harvested from University of Mississippi State. During that process, we quickly learned that planting miscanthus was not easy and very difficult. And so in our early years, we focused on developing a system to plant it mechanically. And so we launched our system in 2014 called the AccuYield system. I'll share more about that in a couple slides to go here. Once we developed our system, we've then really transitioned to focused on industry. At that period of time, bioenergy was a major segment for the use of energy crops. We were lucky to be awarded a project in 2014 with the University of Iowa, which was really our first bioenergy project. We established 1,500 acres for the university. That's been going on over a decade now as a renewable energy source for power production. Shortly after the project with Iowa, we then expanded regionally with our nursery farm operation. We did that within the Southeast and Midwest. We viewed our nursery farms as future commercial farms to harvest rhizomes for, to bring low-cost rhizomes to the larger market as they grow. Those regional farms also acted as an opportunity to do R&D within those areas to create new industry and serve as a resource to essentially build markets. As we further developed our company into 2017, we learned that bioenergy was a market that was continuing to struggle with technology. So we shifted our focus on markets that had less technology risk and really found a great market with poultry to begin our commercial expansion. Since then, we've established Miscanthus in 16 states for the poultry industry. I'll go in a little bit more on that to come, but that's just been a great market for us to build on. Outside of poultry bedding, we continue to work with industry to develop bioproducts. I shared a few of those partnerships here on this slide, and also co-founded a company called Polterra in 2022, which is an extension of our poultry bedding business. We work with 3 commercial types of Miscanthus giganteus today: Freedom, Nagara, and Illinois clone. We also hold a pipeline of advanced varieties that are pre-commercial varieties that we'll bring online in the future. We have a quality control standard that we developed for energy crop production. It consists of certified nursery fields at our processing locations. We use third parties to inspect our fields annually for any contamination. We also provide certification tags to any of our customers who purchase rhizomes directly from us. And then we also hold the largest rhizome inventory, we believe, globally. And that consists of those regional nursery farms and production farms throughout the U.S. Just in our North Carolina location, we have over 30,000 acres of rootstock available in inventory, waiting for large-scale markets to develop. Just to kind of go back over our technology, so this is really what our planting system consists of. We lift the roots from the soil in a manner that protects and preserves the quality of the root. We then import that from nursery fields into a processing system where we sort and size the rootstock accordingly. We wash that and treat it for then transport out to the commercial farms. And then at the commercial farm level, we use a mechanical planter to plant Miscanthus at large scale. This system has driven performance of Miscanthus to kind of an optimal state. We have seen 1 ton to 3 tons of yield in the first year and 6 to 8 tons in year 2, which is a lot different than past technology to plant Miscanthus. Additionally, by planting mechanical and producing the way that we have developed this platform, we've also been able to reduce the establishment cost for Miscanthus. These are some of our production locations throughout the U.S. So I've highlighted the AGgrow Tech locations. This is where we lease land and produce Miscanthus corporately. The other highlights here are partners that we have throughout the country. So we've worked with poultry bedding companies and growers to grow poultry bedding in various regions. Also, we have 1 biorefinery partner in Tennessee, as well as bioproduct producers across the U.S. So we've always, during this webinar series, you've heard a lot about Miscanthus and some of the sustainability characteristics and how it's, to say, maybe a wonder crop. It provides all these great environmental attributes such as water quality, carbon sequestration. It also provides farmers with a new crop and a new resource. And then from an economic standpoint, it's shown to produce sustainable returns for farmers without risk, as well as becoming a great feedstock for industry in terms of its quality and consistency. But what's the challenge? We talk about all these great attributes, and really the limiting factor is the markets. Markets are vital for farmers to produce Miscanthus. A farmer, I think, will grow anything that they can profit from as long as there's a sound market. And so our company has tried to develop these efforts to partner with industry and develop some of these markets so that we can bring Miscanthus to a larger scale. Poultry has been kind of a bedrock of our operation, but now we're starting to see bio-based products coming on. We've done work in the biopower sector, some R&D work in textile fibers. There's continual support from USDA and DOE on biofuels, such as sustainable aviation fuel, as well as liquid fuels. And then most recently, some additional work in ingredients for human and animal health and pulp and paper. When we look at Miscanthus from a microscope level, I love this graphic. You can see how complex the plant cells are. What's interesting about this is that cellulose and lignin are some of the most abundant polymers, natural polymers out there. So the plant can be broken down into all of these different segments and used to create different products. Here, this depiction shows lignins being used for binders or composites, while cellulose is used for biodegradable materials, and then sugars to alcohol and fuels. But getting to this part of the plant takes a lot of R&D, and so really, from our standpoint as AGgrow Tech, we target markets based on certain factors. For us as a grower, we have typically targeted markets that show the highest profit margin, where Miscanthus is considered a competitive advantage, and where there's less technology risk. Although we are technology based, we try to partner with technology versus developing technology. We also target the areas where Miscanthus grows best. There could be a great market in California, but Miscanthus doesn't compete well against real estate. So you've got to find that market that Miscanthus really has the right fit. So as we're looking at those factors from a growing standpoint, there's others that are looking at those factors from a development standpoint. The folks there at University of Illinois are the leaders with Miscanthus development. We've seen products come out of their lab that are focused on food dyes replacements, so food colorants. We've talked about biofuels, bioproducts from those labs. So it's great to see that from a R&D perspective, new products are being developed. But once you have that new product developed, you really have to test and validate that within the industry. Even a product as simple as our Miscanthus bedding for poultry took years of development and testing through the poultry industry and universities to validate that it wasn't harmful to chickens, and that the performance of chickens would be improved. So we try to link all these pieces together by partnering, and then once we've developed that product, then it becomes in a place where we can commercially produce. So I talked a little bit about those steps, and so as I mentioned about targeting the industry, the one thing that attracted us to poultry was the fact that poultry is considered the lowest cost protein. And so it's the protein that continues to feed the globe, and it continues to increase and grow at about a 12% margin annually. It's also a market where consumers are always pushing for food safety. So when we talk about the husbandry in the house and keeping the environment clean for the animals, we want to make sure we have a product that reduces salmonella or harmful bacteria. And that was a portion of the market that really needed to be addressed. Also, upstream customers like McDonald's, Chipotle's, a lot of your grocery store chains are always pushing for animal welfare improvements as well. And so when we look at the traditional practices in broiler production, we see a lot of room to improve and where Miscanthus would have a competitive advantage. And then finally, the environmental concerns. So if you can improve the cost and productivity and also provide companies with an environmental incentive or attribute, there's opportunity for change. So this market was a large market, so it wasn't a small market. We've estimated the market size for bedding at 300 million plus annually. It's also a market that has a small customer base. So in terms of who we're working with, Tyson Foods is such a large entity. It has production throughout the US, and so you don't need a lot of customers in a market of this size. But once we targeted the market, we had to create that product that worked well. And I love this slide because these chickens all have smiles on their face. You can tell with the texture of this bedding that and the distribution of the birds that it's a great bedding for a broiler operation. Companies in the past had used byproducts like wet sawdust, hardwood, which is not optimal for broiler growth. Peanut hulls, rice hulls have also been used. And so when we're trying to optimize productivity, it's better to have all your inputs understood. And so by growing Miscanthus and being able to offer that to companies across the country and all of their production locations, they're able to optimize their productivity. Using the same management practices. How do we manage the bedding from a change out perspective? But to get there, we had to cut our product in a way that farmers could utilize it, spread it without difficulty, and that it was actually an improvement in their process. So these are some of the companies that we're working with today. What we have seen when companies switch to Miscanthus, we typically save them 10% to 15% on cost. They see a 2+% improvement in mortality and a 10% improvement in feed conversion ratio. So poultry has been a great market to continue to expand on. Our company has just recently partnered with a European technology company called Green Create. Through that partnership with Green Create, we formed a US-based company called Polterra. In the US, our platform will be based on providing farmers and companies with Miscanthus bedding. And then through our mass program, we have developed an exchange where farmers, instead of buying bedding, will provide bedding at no cost in exchange for their litter. And then we'll take that litter that has been traditionally problematic for the sector, too much of it produced, too much phosphorus, not treated and applied to fields, which can run off in the waterways. And we'll take that litter and process that through an anaerobic digestion process to produce renewable natural gas that can either be used for thermal energy or transportation fuels. We'll also produce some fertilizer products, an ammonium sulfate that's considered a green ammonium sulfate, as well as a OMRI certified organic 432 fertilizer. Additionally, when we produce the methane that then gets scrubbed into natural gas, one of the byproducts from that process is CO2, which is used within the poultry industry for cooling and dry ice and stunning. So within this business, we have a nice synergy with our Miscanthus bedding business, as well as improving some of those environmental problems for the poultry industry. So we're quite bullish on this opportunity around Polterra. The RNG market is in 2023 produced about 90 million MMBTUs, and DOE expects that to increase to 450 million MMBTUs by 2030. So that's over a 5x increase in the next 5 years. So in terms of a large market opportunity, RNG presents that. For every project that we do, we'll have about 4,000 acres of Miscanthus to produce about 600,000 MMBTUs of natural gas. Just to serve 25% of the poultry market with this technology would require about 30 facilities. So it is quite a vast opportunity. Outside of some of the businesses AGgrow Tech's focused on, we do partner with others, and we're blessed to have University of Iowa as a partner since 2014. This is an example of one thermal energy project that utilized Miscanthus grown locally to replace coal to meet their sustainability goals. We've established 1,500 acres there today and look to expand that in the future to about 2,500 acres. The thermal energy market is based on a lot of incentives like renewable energy credits. Some states have portfolio standards, and so bioenergy continues to be a opportunity for energy grass producers. I want to talk a little bit about the bioproducts. So, we're all familiar with straw, wheat straw, rye straw, rice straw. Quite a bit of that product moved within various markets. Here is some of the work we've done in the erosion control sector. So we have developed a sediment retention device called the AGgrow Wattle. That's currently being distributed in 3 states. We produce that in Georgia, Mississippi, and Iowa. We've gotten state DOT approvals for its use. It's a great filter, sock, and media for reducing runoff. A lot of the applications you see that product used in is like perimeter control or just slowing down velocity or soil erosion, where typically a silt fence would be used. Straw bales can also be used as a seeding cover. We have partnered with farmers to bale Miscanthus into both small bales and large bales for that application. Additionally, hydromulch is a great sector to continue to develop for Miscanthus. Straws and wood products are used along with tackifiers and colorant to secure seeding. And then non-woven mats and blankets. We've done a lot of work with the Westerns of the world that use straw as a media to create the non-woven blankets. There's always an increased demand for straw out there, so we see this as a great sector to continue to integrate within. Another bioproduct that we partnered on was in 2022 with Worthington Container, based out of Minnesota. They have a product for Crystal-Lex that they manufacture. It is produced with a combination of wheat straw and Miscanthus. You can see that here in the photo. It's a feeder primarily for the cattle industry. They'll put their minerals or salts in these containers and sell these into retail. The process is just high temperature press molding. What's cool about this product is traditionally plastic containers have been used, and with this product, it just naturally biodegrades in the field. We've also done some work, I think on one of the webinar series, Kelly Tiller may have spoken with Genera. Great company based out of Tennessee. This company's been around as long as we have, or maybe longer. I think maybe 2008 they formed. But they have developed a first-of-a-kind agricultural biorefinery in Vonore, Tennessee. In this refinery, they take in bales of miscanthus and switchgrass. They process it into a molded fiber product. Top right are some of the products they make: to-go containers, bowls, plates, trays. And they've also just recently launched a meat tray for both the poultry and beef industry, which further integrates within that poultry supply chain. But this technology is very cool. They produce over 1 billion units of finished product per year, and 100% made of natural grasses. And then in recent years, here this past year, we worked, this is our first step into the animal and human health industry. We partnered with a company called Belcam. Their specialty is functional spray drying powders. So as you do that process, you can use powders that are from plant or high fiber type products. Corn cobs are used a lot today. What makes miscanthus different is it can be certified organic. There's no harmful chemicals sprayed, so it's a little different than corn cobs in that respect. And then it's also non-GMO. So for certain industries that are focused on that type of quality, miscanthus has a tremendous fit. It just so happens that Belcam sells some products into the poultry industry as well for animal health. They sell choline chloride into poultry, and so it's always interesting being at conferences talking about miscanthus bedding to poultry, but then also having companies there that are integrated on the feed supplement side. So just another example how miscanthus can integrate in other areas of an industry. And then I wanted to share a little bit of work we're continuing to do around the bioproducts, primarily in cutlery. We had a company here in North Carolina that put in a pilot plant in Sanford in 2024. You can see kind of the steps here of their process. They start out with agricultural waste or purpose-grown energy crops. They create a resin. That resin is then used to do thermoforming of products. They're focused on cutlery. Those cutlery products can be then composted. Very cool process. Their plant here in Sanford is pre-commercial, but looking to become fully commercial here in the next few years. We started testing with them. They had focused primarily on rice husks. Started using the miscanthus as a feedstock, and some of the performance and attributes of the miscanthus have just turned out better than some of the feedstocks they were using before. So quite happy about the work we're doing with them, and look forward to them launching a commercial facility here in the near future. So those are some of the main markets that we have a lot of work going in, but I did want to share here on my last slide just the pipeline of other products that we at some level have done some work with. We've done a lot of work in the horticulture market with plant pots as well as media, even in the horticulture market in terms of growing poinsettias or vegetables in greenhouses. The plant media is very important. Peat moss is primarily used in that sector, but we've done a lot of work with NC State and some of the leaders in horticulture to integrate miscanthus fiber as a peat moss replacement. So that market, a lot of potential to that market. Biochars and soil medias. One of our growers in Maryland not only farms miscanthus for poultry bedding, but he also invested in an advanced composting process. He bought in-vessel composters. He takes in waste streams and then uses the miscanthus as a carbon source to integrate with the waste streams to create a soil media. So using miscanthus as that carbon additive in composting or the manufacturing of soil media has a lot of merit. We've done some work in Iowa with Kent, which produces world's best kitty litter. They've used natural ingredients. There's a big push for more natural ingredients into that kitty litter and pet care industry, and miscanthus would have a great fit for that. Along with your bedding materials, building materials is a great sector as well. We just had a company here in North Carolina called Planted that formed that's focused on energy crops for OSB and strand board production. They're looking at these grass crops being used not only to sequester carbon, but then put into building materials to lock that carbon up for the building industry. It also can be used in concrete additives. You're seeing CO2 also used in concrete to reduce the carbon footprint. So I see that building material industry as an industry that is ripe for a fiber crop like miscanthus. And then we continue our work on biofuels. We are partnered with several technology companies on that front. We've done some work just this past year on converting miscanthus to sustainable aviation fuel. So we're very hopeful for that industry to mature and continue to progress. So I'll stop there. Again, I'm thankful for the opportunity to talk today at today's webinar, and we'll open it up for questions.
Fantastic, Travis. Thank you. All right, there's no questions yet in the chat, so if you have them, feel free to use the chat and I'll keep an eye on it. Otherwise, if you have questions, go ahead and unmute and ask.
Steve, Travis, thank you. I had just a comment. My niece sent me a picture of the dog food she's using, and it has miscanthus as the fiber additive into the dog food, and it's listed prominently on the bag as one of the first ingredients. So that was surprising to me, but it was really great to see.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Steve. It's great to see some of these things come to fruition and be noticed in the marketplace. There's a company out in Missouri, Renew, that has been working for over a decade now in that dog food additive space. So it's good to see that product continuing to integrate into pet food.
If no one else has a question, I guess I have a question about the infrastructure, AGgrow Tech, and that is any future plans on expanding into the transportation market or partners with transportation to try to deal with getting the product to the place where it needs to be in an economical way. That seems to be a bottleneck right now.
Yeah, our business model really is once we've identified those markets, is really to try to grow the crop locally. Today, to develop some of these markets, we've had to transport long distances. Our horse bedding operation is just located in Iowa, but I've got customers that call from Florida, that call from North Carolina, that want horse bedding products. So we've got to truck that in from a pretty far distance. But we use this as a way to just understand the market, right? What is the market acceptance of the product? What's the price points that we can achieve? And then what's the demand? Once that market's fully understood, then we would put in a bagging line closer to that end market. You know, that's kind of how we approach it. But to answer your question, Steve, is yeah, we really want to try to develop these industries locally and reduce the transportation.
Travis, can you comment on how you expect policy to influence AggroTech or Polterra's value proposition?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think with any of these energy crops, you know, we're kind of a step behind traditional agriculture. So, you know, there's really no programs that have been developed to help farmers get off the ground with producing miscanthus. Luckily, we've been able to step in states where we do have production, like Iowa and Maryland. We've been able to create a few programs to assist farmers. So policy is super important to help with the bridge between traditional agriculture and perennial agriculture. The other piece to policy is around how the environmental attributes are viewed. You know, we talk about biofuels. One of the things that drives biofuel progress is the renewable fuel standard, which incentivizes based on a feedstock type. So Miscanthus qualifies under that piece of legislation. In thermal energy markets, it's really driven by the CI score, your carbon intensity score. You know, if you're trying to sell Miscanthus biogas, for example, companies want to know what your CI score is, and they'll actually value your gas based on that score. And so the work that's being done at university to understand those attributes and to publish those attributes really help companies like myself in terms of understanding the value of the product to that end market. So they're vital.
Heather's got a question queued up, and there's a few other ones, but I just want to ask the other kind of front and center one. What about incentives for RNG? Do you see those as brittle or fragile?
I do. I see, you know, specifically around the transportation market. So when you look at RNG into transportation, it's been the only molecule that's really served that D3 RIN that's been obligated by DOE, but it's been capped. So if you look at the transportation market, it really hasn't grown since 2018. It's only grown at about 1%. You know, from 2018 to last year, a lot of the companies like Amazon, UPS, you know, they did make the transition from diesel trucks to RNG trucks. We'd like to see more, you know, more progress on that transportation side, more trucks converting from diesel to RNG. And then along with that, we'd like to see DOE continue to increase those D3 RIN mandates because that will really drive, you know, more development in the RNG space. Where I see it being fragile is around the thermal energy markets, especially the thermal energy markets that have focused on CI score. You know, there could be, you know, a breakdown in that legislation and policy that could really impact the RNG industry.
You have several exciting questions in the chat. Do you want me to mediate that, or can you look at them?
Sure. I prefer you to mediate.
Okay. We have 20 minutes left before we end the time, and I want to hear all of these answered. So keep that in mind when you give the length of your answers. So Heather says, it is great to see the poultry bedding project gain some traction. Have you done any work with institutions to help you quantify how much better it is in terms of emissions? And Heather, I'm just going to go ahead and add the qualifier that you're interested in emissions both inside the poultry house for air quality and maybe outside the poultry house with carbon intensity.
Yes, particularly with looking at it as a life cycle crop. If you're using the outputs from these chicken coops for the renewable natural gas, I'm worried, or I'm curious about what these numbers look like for the system as a whole.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we dug through the archives, and really the only thing we could find on emissions related to bedding was some work that came out of Iowa State, and they compared managing old manure and through like a composting process, and doing that over time versus new bedding every flock. And there was some pretty staggering differences in the emission reductions. It was a lab scale, small body of work, but it really showed a lot of improvements. And so with that work, we have now been awarded a grant with USDA in Maryland. Dean Hively, a partner of ours there, will be putting monitoring systems on commercial barns to track emissions coming from those commercial barns as it relates to new Miscanthus bedding versus wood bedding. So that body of work will be done over the next 5 years, and we're hopeful we'll see some great great information come from that work.
That's awesome. Can't wait to see where it goes from there.
Good answer there, Travis. So next up, what is the current economic? Oh wait, hold on. There's a bunch more in here. Next up is from Mark Newman. I was interested in knowing about the interest of Lenzik, which is a supplier to the global fashion industry. Is Miscanthus a potential substitute for wood cellulose in the production of textile fibers such as modal?
Yeah, great question. They've done a lot of work in Europe around that process. Beechwood is being used a lot today, as well as eucalyptus by Lenzing. Lenzing has manufacturing in Alabama in the U.S., and then most of their work comes from Brazil. But yes, I think that there is a fit in that industry for Miscanthus. There's just quite a bit of work on the technology side related to that.
Mark, if you have follow-ups, feel free. I think there's a lot to unpack there with the fashion industry. Maybe related to that, though, is next up, what is the current economic value of bulk processed Miscanthus per ton? How does that compare to other feedstocks?
Yeah, so that's a interesting question because it ranges right all over, and we see poultry bedding range from anywhere from say $90 a dry ton basis to as much as $250 a dry ton basis, depending on what markets you're located in. Markets that aren't near timber like Iowa, Illinois, tend to have a much higher price point versus markets that are in the timber belt. But for markets in bioenergy, really the target has been between $50 and $100 a ton, which makes the economics very difficult, right? It makes farmers, maybe less profitable than a traditional system. Where I think there's a gap or an area of improvement is really when you start coupling on those environmental incentives. If you can provide farmers with the incentive of water quality, then you can add more value back to the producer. And so I think for bioenergy, we really got to couple those environmental attributes to the production side so that the farmer has enough profitability to grow it, but then bioenergy has a low-cost feedstock that can be competitive with fossil fuels.
Great, thanks. Mike Masters asks about your business model. With so many sites spread across the country, how does your business model work with your desire to minimize emissions? Do you have to move heavy equipment long distances to harvest plots and produce your products? Any idea how close your various systems operations are to carbon neutral?
Yeah, so great question. We try to partner with industry. So in a lot of our locations, we partner with local farming entities. So like in Iowa, for University of Iowa's project, we have local farmers that have the equipment to harvest, store, handle, and deliver the product to the university. It creates new job opportunities for the farmers because harvest season is a different season than traditional crops there. And we're also utilizing that equipment, in a more, we get more equipment utilization throughout the year by using some of that equipment. That's how we've approached our business model, is really to partner with farmers and kind of grow our business locally. The only real impact in terms of carbon emissions related to our productivity is the transportation of our roots, our rhizomes to those planting locations, and then our planting equipment. But it's a one-time planting process. So once that's complete, there's really not a lot of movement of that equipment to those production locations.
Thanks. John Hodge, did you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, definitely. Really interesting work. Actually, I was kind of taken by the point that you had made about the mortality earlier, and sort of thinking about like galliform, like poultry species. A lot of them are sort of adapted for living in like mixed and tall grass prairies, and so this all kind of makes a lot more sense. Where you're probably giving them an environment that they're actually kind of adapted for anyway. I guess I was actually thinking, have you sort of looked at some of the less hardy types of poultry like quail or pheasants, where I think they have even higher mortality rates, and just seeing if you actually have an even like sharper improvement in those?
Yeah, we have not. That's a great question. I would love to look at that. I know there are some commercial quail operations in North Carolina. We've not engaged them. So I think that would be definitely interesting to us to go into some of those operations and compare Miscanthus to traditional bedding. So yeah, I think that's a great opportunity for us as well. I will say from a wildlife perspective, so not using Miscanthus as bedding, but what we've noticed in Iowa is just a tremendous population of pheasants that have come into our production fields. These grasses seem to attract birds as for cover, and so from an ecosystem standpoint, I think this grass has been really good for wildlife.
Transitioning to another bedding question, Talon Becker asks about potential for growth into livestock bedding markets other than poultry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did not highlight that in my slides, but we have over the last, I'd say, 4 years in some of the feedlot areas where there's a lot of cattle production. We've been integrating with bales. Corn stalks are used today, but our product, we get great comments back from cattle producers that it's more absorbent. Animals like laying down and bedding on it more so than say corn stalks. And Steve, who's on the call, he's done a lot of work with some of the local cattle producers there in Iowa. But yeah, it has a great fit for that as well.
And I apologize that I'm kind of rushing these questions. I just want to get through the full range, and then you guys can follow up with each other in addition. So Steve does say, are implement companies showing any interest in small scale harvest and planting equipment? And I'll just go ahead and build on that. What about large scale planting and harvest equipment?
Yeah, so I would say we've gotten or developed great relationships with the companies who have developed the harvesting systems. So when we first started with our process of harvest, which is traditionally forage chopping, we ran into a lot of issues with equipment. This is a dry product when we cut it. It's highly abrasive. And so, using traditional equipment had some challenges. But luckily, a lot of the equipment manufacturers have stepped in to help out to improve equipment over time. And so we've been thankful that they've worked with us on that front. In terms of planting, our system is more large scale. So we have 8-row planters, and we're bringing those planters in to plant 50-acre plots or larger. We do have smaller that are more manually operated planters that we do buffer projects with. So in the wildlife industry for habitat, or for producers who want to plant Miscanthus more as a screening tool, One of the sectors that's really great for us is putting Miscanthus around hog barns or around poultry barns to reduce emissions. And so in those applications, it's just a strip. And so we've got some smaller planters that are more, hand type planters for that type of application. We've developed a great relationship with Spudnik. They're a potato planting manufacturer based here in the US. And they have the ability to manufacture planters from 2-row all the way up to 12-row. Great partnership we've established with them.
Thanks, Travis. There's one more from Emron, but I just wanted to, Travis Burke, you unmuted a while ago, and Travis Burke is not only an Associate Dean of Extension here, but he's also a North Carolina poultry farmer. So I just wanted to give him the chance that if you were driving and wanted to say something, Travis, just unmute and interrupt. We'll take it. But I'll go to Emron's question, and we'll see if Travis does that. So given the long-term nature of Miscanthus production, I'm curious about your company's land acquisition strategy. Do you currently focus on producing Miscanthus exclusively on rented land, or do you plan to lease or purchase land for more secure long-term cultivation? Additionally, I'm just going to, you go ahead and answer that, and then we can do the rest.
Yeah, I can jump in there. So we do own land, we do rent land, and we do contract growing. So we have kind of 3 ways that we partner with landowners. And it really, a specific region may offer, a better opportunity. So, but again, we try to work with the farming industry to deliver this product in the most effective way to the company that's sourcing the product.
And then the add-on to that is, how do you assess the risks and benefits of each approach in ensuring supply stability for your business?
Yeah, and I think that that's a great question because we get asked that a lot by farmers who want to grow Miscanthus, and the farming community is really, set up on an annual, sometimes handshake deal in terms of leasing land from landowners. And with a perennial system, you really want to secure that land for a long period of time. And so you got to make sure you have long-term leases in place and that you've, been upfront with your landowners if you're a producer on how to structure that. But then we typically go, I would say our minimum contracts are 7, but we have a lot of contracts that go 10 years with, 5-year renewals. And for us, it's really trying to keep that crop in production as long as we can.
Excellent. So we've now gone through all the questions in the chat. It is 12:54. This is longer than we usually go, but I knew this would happen. Travis has got a lot of exciting stuff. I jump in if you have any burning last-minute questions.
I'll just say, Emily, too, my email's here on this final slide. If anybody has any questions that they didn't get a chance to ask today, feel free to email me or call my office. We'd love to have discussions with industry and continue to bring Miscanthus to the market. And thank you, Emily, for hosting today. Glad I had the opportunity to share.
It's always a pleasure to have you, Travis. I'm sure we'll have Travis back in the fall. There's a lot developing in this space, and we barely scratched the surface of some of these topics.